What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew: Shy, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, and Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right. That's right. For everyone who's tuning in, we hope that you support Behind the Bench. Continue supporting Behind the Bench. Become a subscriber, or continue to subscribe and help make this show the best that it can be. Now, I wanted to briefly provide my response to this so-called movement about, fans, basketball fans, or particular basketball fans, I should say, who are saying they're done with the 90s NBA. I said, wait a minute, man. I've never seen so much chaos in my life, man, when it comes to sports, man. Like, I've never seen constant effort. And, this all triggered when I start seeing, like, the origins of what is becoming obvious and full-fledged now. It started around, this is 2024, so I'm going to say it started around 2016-ish, 2017. And, I love reading books, articles, literature, blogs per se, incited to NBA. So I came across this article written by someone where, they distorted the career averages of Michael Jordan. And I said, wait a minute, man, that's not right. Because that person said, well, Jordan averaged 27 points a game during the postseason. I said, whoa. I said, no, that's not right. That's not right. Michael Jordan is the only, actually, yeah. You could sit there and say, as a whole, Michael Jordan is the only player in the history of the NBA to average 30 points per game plus in postseason play. Now, I know Luka Doncic, his first experiences in the postseason, Luka he was really putting fear in the opponent, and Luka Doncic is a big time player. He's a superstar MVP caliber player. So I believe he has a career playoff point per game average of 30 points or more. So he's included in that. But he has a long way to go. But to make a long story short, I said, wait a minute, man, that ain't right. That ain't right. That ain't right. I remember Michael Jordan, actually, his scoring increased from regular season to the postseason, from postseason to the finals. So I knew that wasn't right because when he retired in 1993, his career point per game average during the regular season was like 33.4. So when he said 27 points a game for postseason, I said, man, what's going on? And that was the beginning of it. See, man, when you peep game, like what I'm saying, like when you really in tune with something, where you really invest a lot of time learning about something, learning how to pick up on things, man, where you just get more experience with it, right? So when I saw that, man, that was like an insult. That was an insult, but that was deliberate. That was deliberate. The person who wrote that was deliberate. And like I said, one thing you can't do, man, when you have a platform, when you have an opportunity to express yourself in the public realm, I'm not saying you're going to get everything right because you don't. But when it comes to a historical account, you have to be factual. You have to be. Even if it's something that you don't necessarily agree with or wish was different, well, if you be honest about it, you won't have any irrationality about the situation. But what I'm getting at is, you know, this conversation about certain fans being done with the 90s, NBA that is. And I'm sitting there, man, I'm scratching my head. I say, okay, let's apply logic to that because I don't believe that was based in logic. That was based off of an agenda. That was based off of disingenuine point of view. That was based off of emotion. See, the difference is when the current NBA is critiqued by former players or older fans of the past, do people notice? Like, I consider myself a fan of the older generation, but I'm looking forward to the moment when the NBA finally moves forward. I love this young talent that's in the league. I love how the center position is starting to reemerge. I'm loving all that. So even in the hour of chaos is what the NBA is currently operating in. Well, just waiting to rise from the ashes is an era of basketball that can stand on its own, don't be compared to anything, and go down as a great period of NBA history in its own right. But the agenda and the narrative and the spite is holding that potential back. And that's what's sad. That's never happened in any other era, a decade of the NBA's existence. Never. Okay. So when you hear someone say, I'm done with the 90s, well, how can you be done with something that's already been done by people who did it 30 years before the fact that you decided you was done with it? Usually when you're done with something, it's something that is active during the time in which you've been participating in or been exposed to. You can't be done with something that's already been completed. First of all, there's nothing that can be done to change the past, whether we like it or not. But what's crazy is these fans that have been motivated and led to reach this conclusion that they're done with the 90s, well, they're missing out. Because the 90s NBA, contrary to what these talking heads have spewed over this past 5 years, was an era of tremendous growth in the league. Right? They down expansion, right? They say expansion diluted the league. But if you really study it, now I'm going to be honest. When expansion really started to take place, and actually it didn't, like the wave of expansion that added 6 new teams that became commonplace in the 90s, it didn't start in the 90s. It started in 1988, first of all, which was before the dynasty of the Chicago Bulls, led by Michael Jordan, that a lot of today's fans have been led to trash, or at least undermine and discredit Michael Jordan. And that's really what this whole thing is about. We're done with the 90s. But when you expand like that, that means that the league has experienced tremendous success and is in position to grow and to quote unquote expand. So it wasn't a negative, it was a positive. If you don't have the Vancouver Grizzlies that started in the mid-90s, well, fans in Memphis wouldn't be rooting for the Memphis Grizzlies. If you didn't have the Minnesota Timberwolves who started in 1989, well, fans in Minnesota right now wouldn't be cheering for a team that's tied for second place in the Western Conference. The Miami Heat started in 1988. Well, if the Miami Heat didn't start in 1988 and was never founded, then those fans down in South Beach wouldn't be celebrating no championship in 2006 when they won their first championship. Same thing for the fans in Charlotte right now. They rooting for a professional basketball team that originated in 1988. The Toronto Raptors, the city of Toronto would have never celebrated a championship in 2019 if the franchise wasn't founded in 1995. So first of all, you're saying if you're done with the 90s, you're done with all those franchises. If you're done with the 90s, you know what that means? That means you're done with the original Dream Team. They represented the United States. You're done with the Dream Team that relied on NBA players to reclaim gold that they lost 4 years earlier in 1988. If you're done with the 90s, you're done with the original Dream Team, Team USA, in Barcelona, Spain. They're spearheaded international play, where you fast forward 30 years later, your top NBA players are international born. That was all spawned by the influence and inspiration of the original Dream Team. You would have Dream Team too. They won the World Championships in 1994, led by Shaquille O'Neal. Dominique Wilkins was on that team. Joe Dumars was on that team. Mark Price was on that team. If I'm not mistaken, Kevin Johnson was on that team. You would have Dream Team 3 that featured Grant Hill, Scottie Pippen, Akeem Olajuwon, Penny Hardaway, and the like. You wouldn't have none of those teams. And they all won gold. See, none of this makes any sense, man. And it's really a waste of energy. And the fans that say they're done with the 90s, well, they spent countless hours pulling up footage that shows like negative plays or bad plays made by players or superstars, particularly Michael Jordan, where everybody turns the ball over. Everybody has a blooper. Everybody's Mr. Dunk, right? Everybody's got dunked on. Everybody's got scored on. Everybody. If that wasn't the case, you wouldn't have the NBA. Right? So with fans that's doing this, what they don't realize is they're cheating themselves out of the opportunity to understand what made the NBA great will put them in position to gravitate to the league that they watch today. You don't have today without yesterday. And you won't have the future without today with the proper understanding of the contributions of past players that made this league viable and eventually put this league in position to go global. And that was all spearheaded in the 90s, led by the influence and dominance and exceptional representation of this league. Elite level play, the ultimate competitor in Michael Jordan. That's really what this is all about. When they say they're done with the 90s, they're trying to discredit the era that Michael Jordan played in. Now, with these fans that's doing that right now, that's participating in this nonsense, well, fast forward 20 years. How would they like if a new generation of basketball fans, hopefully the NBA is still in existence, but just for the sake of assumption, what if fans 20 years down the road in the 2040s, what if they spent countless hours trashing the 2010s and the 2020s. Like I said, it's one thing to have a favorite player. Everybody has a favorite player. No big deal. Everybody has a favorite team. No big deal. You may think a player is better than somebody. But in order to truly, you can believe that, but really that normally applies to the competition of the moment, of the present. You don't spend, if you're basing your critique on how you feel about your favorite player and compare them constantly to a player who retired 20 years ago, right? There's something wrong with that picture. There's to even be consumed by that, right? But let me get back to why when there's a critique of the current NBA by, former players or whatnot, former voices that cover the league, they're not critiquing the talent of the player. That's not what they're critiquing. They're critiquing the play. That's the difference. Like what I'm trying to say is, there are times when teams rely too much on the three ball. When the 3-point shot is not falling, the team struggles. They don't have a counter. Either they're going to try to drive to the basket, draw a foul, or shoot an exorbitant amount of threes. Well, and what's missing in that equation is a consistent mid-range game where you operate out of the mid-range. This is why the Denver Nuggets are so effective. They play a combination of 90s. The Denver Nuggets kind of remind me of the 90s Houston Rockets that won the championship in back-to-back years, 1994-95. They run their offense through a center. They can play inside out, or Jokic, he can run the offense from the top of the key. But in a way where players can cut off of him and he can get it to the open man. They remind me of a mid-90s team or a 2000s team. They don't shoot a lot of 3-point shots. But they combine all the elements of solid inside play with Jokic and Aaron Gordon. They have the 3-point shooting in Michael Porter Jr. and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And then Jamal Murray can hit a big three, but Jamal Murray also can pull up in the mid-range. So they have the 3-tier attack on their offense. This is why they're so consistent. This is why they broke through and won a championship in the era of super teaming and stacking the deck. So when today's league is critiqued, it's not about the talent or what a fan today may feel offended by. It's not about that. It's not about that. Now, I do see slowly but surely more balance in basketball. And tell you the truth, I believe, it was reported last week that the NBA league office is looking into allowing defense to be more aggressive, to balance, how can I say, to where offense does not have an extreme advantage over the defense. When the defense is appropriate, it actually improves the offense. Now, you may not get the high scores per se, teams scoring on 120, 130 points. You may not get that, but it's going to force you to play a more mature style of offensive basketball. You're going to have a better product on the court. So when a player from yesterday or a voice from yesterday critiques today's NBA, it's not about the talent. But on the opposite end, a lot of today's fans have been misled to trash the past and plumbers, firemen, and all this nonsense. Well, actually, you're mocking the profession of a fireman and a plumber because those are two very important jobs that we need in society. Right? So a lot of this, man, it's agenda driven and has lowered the bar on NBA commentary as a whole because they're trying to discredit the past to try to gym up this GOAT argument that is stagnated commentary of the NBA across the board. And this is why a lot of older fans who grew up doing that. I'll say the 70s to 70s. Well, from the time the merger, the ABA-NBA merger occurred in the late 70s. This is why you got more older fans speaking out against this, man. Because it's not cool. And it's an insult. Like, we don't have no problem. Like Jokic, man, I think right now Jokic is one of the 10 greatest centers of all time. He's in position to win a third league MVP. There's not a lot of centers have done that. I think maybe Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Kareem, Moses Malone. I think Akeem Olajuwon, no, he only won one league MVP. He should have won two. But nonetheless, Joel Embiid got league MVP. So what I'm saying is, man, I consider the average of 30-point triple-double, what separates him is his passing ability. I believe Jokic will go down in history as the greatest passing center in the history of the NBA. I don't have no problem giving props when props is due. But I can do that and base it on what they're achieving while they play without having to trash past players to try to prove that case. That's the difference between the older fans and the younger fans coming up that's being misled by these talking heads who really don't understand the history of the game. That's the first thing. The reason why they critique and trash the past is because they don't understand it in context. That's why they're doing it. Because if they really understood the history of this league, they would be spending every waking moment on the clock trying to trash the past. See, they're doing a disservice. So when you see all these great players in this picture here, Reggie Miller, they call it Miller time. He always stepped up in the playoffs. John Stockton, all-time leader in steals and assists, but they gonna say that he was trash? Gary Payton, arguably, he's the greatest two-way guard. I'll put it this way. Arguably, I would say I had to include Clyde the Glide Frazier. He won 2 championships with the New York Knicks in the 70s. He was known for, he can score, but he was known for playing great defense. But arguably, Gary Payton is considered the greatest defensive point guard ever. He played in the 90s. Grant Hill was on his way. He had the potential to be, no worse than at minimum, a top 20 player in league history until the injuries hit him. Charles Barkley. What can we say about Charles Barkley? The Dikembe Mutombo won like Defensive Player of the Year like 3 times or something to that degree. Led the league in block shots numerous seasons in a row. Like 4 times in his career. Shaquille O'Neal is often considered a top 10 greatest player ever in history of this game. Alonzo Mourning, a lot of people felt that he should have won Rookie of the Year because he and Shaquille O'Neal into the NBA the same year, 1992, where many people felt that Alonzo Mourning had a better rookie year than Shaq. Larry Johnson, Rookie of the Year, national champion, University of Nevada, UNLV Running Rebels. Derek Coleman, if I'm not mistaken, was the number 2 pick of the 89 draft. He had a potential. Matter of fact, the talk was talent-wise, he had more talent than any power forward in the NBA. He just didn't apply himself. He just applied himself. But the talent was enormous. Patrick Ewing had the best jump shot 15, 18 foot out of any center in professional basketball. Vince Carter came in on the tail end of the 90s. I think he entered the NBA like in 98. Because he entered the NBA after T-Mac, Tracy McGrady. AI, what can we say about AI? I think AI is easily considered one of the top five shooting, I would say top six shooting guards of all time. One of the highest point per game scoring averages career-wise in league history. He averaged over 27 points a game. I mean, I can go on and on. Clyde Drexler. 5-slammer jammer, right? He won an NBA championship in 1995 with Hakeem Olajuwon. One of the great. Now, Clyde Drexler is definitely one of the top 5 greatest shooting guards of all time. Like, what are we doing, man? Who else in this picture? Sharif Abdul-Rahim. He was one of the most talented power forwards in basketball. He'd get you 20 and 10. Now, he didn't have a prolonged career, but I'm just saying he was a darn good player. That's what I'm trying to say. Darn good player. And he started off with an expansion franchise. So, and I'm not going to even bring up Michael Jordan. So what I'm saying is, man, look. It's not that when fans say they're done with the 90s. No, it's not that. It's not that. They talk about the 90s all the time. They probably talk about the 90s NBA more than the current NBA, trying to prove a point. No, the problem is the player who represents that era of the 90s, who was the best player in basketball, retired in 1993, came back, and became the best player in the world again, which is really unheard of, and won 6 championships in 8 years. Arguably, as I've stated in previous videos, arguably he left 2 championships on the table to go play another sport. We're talking about a situation where this man conceivably could have won 8 straight championships. Conceivably. Based on the fact that he never lost in the finals, that's why it's feasible to say that. But how can you be done with something that was already done 30 years ago by people who did it? And all this is doing is drawing backlash. That's all this is doing. So the talking heads out here who misrepresent the 90s and the 80s, if they feel that this era is better, man, then just let it be. They should feel confident. They shouldn't be talking about the 90s. If this era is that much, that's why I don't compare eras. It's about the player. It's about the player. When they enter the league, what did they achieve while they in the league? And I don't be thinking about like when Shaquille O'Neal entered the league. I wasn't thinking about every game. Oh man, he better than Will Chamberlain because of this, because of that. After watching every game, it was more about who is he comparing against right now, his contemporary, his opponent. Is he better than Patrick Ewing? Is he better than Hakeem Olajuwon? Is he better than David Robinson? Who we playing right now? So at the end of the day, I'm gonna shut this bad boy down. This is nothing but smoke screens. That's all this is, man. And it's bringing the NBA dynamic down, man. And one thing you can't do is trash the history of anything. Because the current era that a lot of fans or trying to elevate at the expense of the past, well, that era could be criticized too down the road. Michael Jordan did what he did, man. They can't change that. If you got a guy that got a losing record in the NBA Finals, it is what it is. That's why sports is so unique. It's about right now. Or you proving to be better than your opponent. Either you are or you're not. Especially when you've had multiple opportunities to try to prove it. And you still coming up short. When the other guy got it done, it's as simple as that. It got to the point where when it came to MJ, since this is the person that they're trying to erase Michael Jordan from NBA history. It ain't that they're trying to like lower him down in the rankings. They're trying to wipe him clean as if he never existed. That's what they're trying to do. And it's so sinister, man. And it's like it's callous. And they're taking the fun out of the experience of being a fan of this league, because what's happening is, instead of just letting things stay where it was, history let it be history. Well, now what they're doing is they're forcing these older fans to call a lot of stuff out. That's all they're doing. And it's create more contention, more contentiousness, more back and forth, man. So really, who's setting the tone are the people who have the largest platform. That's causing nothing but surefire chaos. And that's all this is. They're trying to disparage a man who retired from professional basketball in 2003. This would be the equivalent of, if this was 1995, okay, if this was 1994, that'd be the equivalent of constantly trying to trash a basketball player who primarily played in the mid-60s, retired in 1968, and it played 2 more years in 1972 and 1973. That'd be the equivalent of someone in 1994 trashing what they think a player did or didn't do in 1973. It's insane. And with these fans that's participating in this madness don't understand, the international player is dominating the league. That's what's crazy about it. The international player are winning the league MVPs. So maybe they need to stop focusing on what happened in what they think happened in 1986. They need to be looking at what's going on right now. That's what happens when you try to trash the past. You set yourself up for the okie doke. So I just want to drop that nugget real quick. Kudos to all the players in all the eras that competed fairly by the book. So I just want to drop that. Until next time, this is JB for BTB. That's right. BTB, Behind the Bench.